does that mean? These,
I'll have to walk you through them so you can,
all right,
there's a lot of moving parts.
I assume that.
It's because they're round, right?
They're always moving.
It's a continuum, yeah. There is no end.
We have 5:30 guys. Let's stand for the pledge. That's gonna lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scott. Roll call.
You got it.
Jenny David,
Here.
Roger Mayhew, Roger Mayhew,
Yeah.
Charles Wiltie,
Here.
Brenda Simmons,
Yep.
Craig Scott.
Here.
Commissioners, any changes or additions to the agenda?
Well, we have a bid and in our Parks and Rec board for the RV park, and we'd like to get something moving on it. So
You want to add,
bring it up tonight and maybe we can get a vote on it next week.
you want to add Parks and Recs under
For that
I?
water,
Yeah,
Pardon me?
for a water softener at the
Oh.
RV park.
So we'll add that on. Anything else?
No, not for me.
that's
Anything else,
I.
commissioners? Item 3, public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Any public comment on the phone? Item 4, appointments. We got Honorable Scott Williams, probate court judge, and Michael LaFave, probate court administrator / friend of the court, related to, we've got 3 things. Child care fund budget adjustment. Hi, guys.
Like I said, we have three things. First of all, the child care fund budget adjustment, I think you have. Maybe you know, our proposed budget adjustments. Basically, if you recall, earlier this year, we kind of were, I want to say, shooting in the dark a little bit with as far as what the total cost of the counseling services were going to be versus how much money we were going to save with residential. We have quite a large amount left in the line item for counseling that we need to use to fill some other holes. One of the big things I guess we didn't really think about is when we kept these kids in the community for the counseling service, there was more cost involved with the other things like transporting them to the counseling and different things that weren't included in the counseling. So our like volunteer services and travel and stuff like that was a little more than we anticipated. But all in all, it's still $2,200 below budget in total, but we just need to be shipped some of that money out of the counseling services into residential care, or actually it's called statewide chargeback. We had budgeted 100. We're asking that it be bumped up to 165 based upon an estimate of our current, where we're at right now in the year. And our counseling was at 300. We're going to take that down to 135 based on where we're at this year. As part of that, our calculations, Michael prepared a little chart for you, basically showing that what we're spending in the counseling and partners and change compared to what we would be spending if these kids went to residential. And it's kind of mind boggling. When we first started the program, we were told to expect about $30,000 per youth. It's not been running that high. As a matter of fact, we have one youth number one who's been receiving services for 18 months and she hasn't hit 25,000 yet. So whereas if she were in residential, that would have cost us $104,000. And there's 3 other examples there how the partners in change is. I mean, there's statistics at the top. They've served 18 kids so far. 8 have completed the program. 10 are still in the program. Shortest service is 3 months. Longest there's 18 months and counting because she's still in it. But of those people that they've counseled, none have gone to residential at this point. Not saying that's not a possibility someday, but as of right now, it's working and it's a lot cheaper than the residential, and plus you're keeping them in the community. But again, that did cause a raise in some other line items that we weren't expecting, like the volunteers to transport it, to counseling and to community service and stuff like that. So
Courts, I mean, all of the individual programs that we offer, court school, mentoring, all of those things we saw increases in kind of across the board, which we should have recognized would happen, but we didn't, but we were able to shift the money around doing that. Also included in this would be the payout of Karen McDonald completed 14 years of service. Today was her last day with the county. Her payout was not insignificant. We were able to cover that in our budget adjustments here. So that, yeah,
on the childcare
on the child care fund
portion,
portion.
it's an 80-20 split. 80% is paid by childcare fund, 20% is front of the court,
Yeah.
which will lead us to our next item on the agenda, trying to adjust that budget to cover front of the court share of her, I don't know what you call it, payout, sick
Salary and
unpaid
fringes.
sick days, stuff like
Or
that.
salary and fringes.
And
Unused.
Unused, yeah.
unused, yeah, sick PTO, sick days. Which, like Michael said, it was not insignificant. It's quite a hit.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yeah, when you're talking to high seniority, like.
But it's not obviously something we put into a budget because we weren't, it
No,
was a
that's-
surprise
yeah.
that she
We
decided
don't put
this
it
is
in
enough.
the budget anywhere.
So,
The other fortunate thing for Karen and the payout is both in the child care fund budget and in the friend of the court budget. Both of those have our reimbursement programs. We were able to include, and we will be reimbursed 50% from the child care fund for her retirement or for the payout. And roughly 66% on the friend of the court portion. It's not exactly that. It's
So are we around 35,000 or we?
35,000 for
about
For the unused?
21,
21.
21? Oh, see, that's better than I thought.
21,693 if you want to be exact, but
Okay, thanks.
and so getting back to the child care fund, we've absorbed $17,000. That's a one-time payout that we weren't expecting.
Right.
Obviously, we've hired somebody else to take her spot and at a slightly reduced wage, but it's basically a wash as far as salary and wages and fringes going forward, but we still have to pay out her unused sick time and PTO.
Karen was on defined pension, I imagine.
Nope,
No?
nope.
Well, she's been 14 years here.
We started in 2009. I think that
It
ended
ended in 2006
six.
or seven. I hired in the prosecutor's office in 05 and I was one of the last ones to have that, but I don't have any more, obviously, but so that's I guess the big picture. We're still coming in a couple $1,000s under budget. But we're gonna have some significant money to move around. So I think Michael and Tim have kind of gave them a copy of this and gone over it a little bit, but I think that since there's such large amounts, you guys are gonna have to give your input on it, so
We're gonna have to what?
Give our input.
give your input.
Oh,
You have to prove it, my understanding for
Yes.
anything over a certain amount, so.
Yeah.
And there's some bigger amounts on here, so.
so this is just money that's moving around in your.
In my own,
budget.
yeah, in our own
Yes.
budget,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
nothing additional, actually, we're a couple
Gotcha.
$1,000s short,
okay. More.
so.
Yeah, the county appropriation portion came in about $2,200 under where we were for when we presented at the beginning of the year. With the shifts that happened, we were able to cut a little bit, including absorbing some of those costs that we talked about.
So we're good for the last quarter, we'll be good.
This will take care of the last quarter as best as we could
Best we can
estimate.
We've sat and tried to get
Very good.
good idea, get, a good idea where we're gonna be at and. Again, also to come up with a starting number for next year too, so.
Right.
But we're saving a lot of money on the institutional care. So it's keeping the kids here at least the ones that can be here. So any questions on that part of it?
Where's the line item on here as far as, it's right there, institutional care, where you're at currently? Right.
I don't have that.
I didn't
Right
put that
here?
in there
That's not a.
of where we are.
We are, what was it?
It's what, it says institutional care, 100,000, then it's got 80,000. As of 6/23.
So institutional care is an old term that will be updated when we move to the next for secure detention, which is different than residential treatment. So
Okay.
secure detention, we were able to drop $20,000 as part of all of this moving around as well. So the secure detention portion, we reduced some.
Institutional care is,
It's
on this sheet is detention.
correct.
Residential care is statewide chargeback on this sheet.
Okay,
It's.
I see it.
It's confusing. It confuses me sometimes.
The state pays first and we receive that money. We receive that's expended through the state board chargeback line. So when you see state board chargeback, that's all of our residential treatment costs. It doesn't say residential treatment because it's happening through the state board chargeback program, and that's what everything's labeled when it comes in. So.
it's just gonna be interesting to see at the end of the year. I mean, I appreciate this graph, but to see how much money we truly have spent or saved
My understanding.
last year to this year with
Before
residential.
2018, 2019, before I was judge, there were some bad years where it was $800,000 to $900,000. So
Yeah.
it's come down quite a,
I like seeing this. I'm surprised that honestly, that the number 18 just looks low.
it does.
If you look at the spreadsheet that I built, you see this gradual. They've added kids as we've moved along. I didn't think to grab a number to say how many kids at once we've had.
Okay,
To say at the most, we've had 10 going at once or 8 going at once. And again, this is a year and a half in, we're just starting to put the numbers together. So it's, I've spent the week kind of typing numbers into a spreadsheet and being surprised at what I'm seeing. In this number, when we look at cost of residential, we used the lowest cost residential program that's in Michigan that we would use, which is $190 a day. We know that there are some that are $400 a day. We know there are some that are $500 a day. So we went with the lowest number in order to try to not inflate that comparison. And it's still a huge amount of money.
Yeah, because that number could easily be $250,000
For 18 months.
depending on which facility, whether if it's a specialized sex offender treatment program, those are expensive. Or if it's like Shawano or Bay Pines, which are basically juvenile prisons, basically, not really services, just those are the cheaper ones, basically, but so.
Commissioner
State
Scott,
treatment.
go ahead.
State treatment centers playing into this.
Yeah, they're, like I say, they've served 18 kids so
Right.
far, and none of them have had to be
That's
put
good.
into residential.
Good.
So they're working. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen one day, and
Right.
it may.
Right.
But so far, so good. They're doing, and we just had a meeting with them yesterday about there's more services and stuff like that they're working on as far as coordinating different things. They're doing a good job. They're putting the effort in and
Are you happy
yeah.
as a
very
judge,
happy,
as far
very
as
happy
this
with
being
it.
an option?
They are. They have to hire a new therapist, so we'll see how he or she. They do seem to have a couple turnover during the last year, but I guess that's kind of.
It's a rough profession.
Yeah, so,
Burnout.
but the kids get used to one person
Yep.
and then they switch, but it's so like that in all mental health, I believe, so.
Did you have something else, Commissioner Scott?
No.
Commissioner Wiltie?
I'm good. Thank you, guys. Sure.
Commissioner Simmons?
Anything else?
Commissioner Mayhew? So we'll have this put on, you're gonna have a couple different resolutions
Back to my agenda.
for childcare fund budget adjustments in front of the court
Yes.
budget adjustments. And then you
I
guys,
didn't talk to the front of the court budget yet,
Oh.
if you want me to do that.
I'm sorry. Go
That's a
ahead.
little bit different. The front of the court budget, the share for the retiree payout is about
Have that on my iPad.
$4,300.
You didn't have these numbers at that
Okay.
point because I didn't know where we would end.
And
Okay,
so the share there is about $4,300, and unlike our childcare fund, we do not have room to absorb that. So that's where I don't know if there's some funds you use for this type of thing, or I don't know.
what's the total?
$4,347 and 67 cents.
It's the best estimate I had it with the numbers that I know how to calculate, so there could be a little room either way with that. Once Tracy and I sit down and actually calculate in the payroll system what it is. But that's
close.
it's close.
You're down to 67 cents and it could be a little variable.
Okay.
Okay.
Might be 68 cents, but.
You guys have talked, do you have an idea?
For that amount, I would suggest it come out of the contingency line for now, if we need to do that. There's also compensated absences. I won't call it a fund, but a silo that some money has been there in the past. We haven't budgeted anything for it, but if there's been some reserve that's been parked in there, I don't know. I haven't had the opportunity to even look at it. So if that's the case, we'll just take it from there. If not, contingency.
I think front of the court does have a small fund balance that it could come from.
We'll check it out and figure it, but this is normally it's one of the things we will talk about is we go through the 24 budget. That's just one of those costs that's out there. We know what the cost is. We probably should be putting a little bit of money into that fund every year because we know we're going to have retirees. You might recall a couple of meetings ago, I talked about the DB plan. We had 22 employees currently who are in that plan, 19 of whom will be eligible to retire in the next 2 years. So knowing that warning sign, we probably should think seriously about just setting some funds aside for this exact thing that we know is going to come.
Yeah, in Karen's example is probably a little higher than most employees because her wage is higher. So it's obviously a percent of half of your daily wage, I think, is what the payout is.
And sick time, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so your normal clerical position, it wouldn't be quite that high, but her, she was in a higher wage position, so that's why it's a bigger hit. So, but yeah, that's the issue with the front of the court budget that we need to figure out how to resolve. So, if there's comes out of the fund balance, so be it. Or if there's another account or fund that you guys use for that, we'd ask that you consider that, but because I think we're pretty tight on the budget from the court.
Yeah, the front of the court budget is always not very flexible. We keep it right at
Is this gonna take us through to the end of the year, this 40,
the adjustment.
47?
That's what it was, because it's just 20% of her overall. So she's 80% childcare fund, which is where we took the big hit and we're able to cover. And then the 20% at front of the court is all that we put through that program.
And that's 2/3 reimbursable too.
Mhm.
So we'll actually get 67% of that back, but if that helps.
Questions?
No, I don't have a question. No, thanks for bringing this start.
You guys will figure it out.
Yeah,
Let us know.
I'm real confident we will
Okay.
have it ready for Thursday.
And then you have friend of the court,
Front of the
cooperative
court.
reimbursement. program.
Cooperative reimbursement program contract every 5 years, I believe it is. You sign a contract with the state of Michigan for money.
It's
allocation.
what allows the 66% reimbursement. It's the contract that we have to agree to in order to get that reimbursement from the federal government through the state of Michigan.
They basically, they have this allocated for $3.1 million for 5 years. It's basically 573,136 for next year, then they add 5% each year. That's our maximum allocation. I don't think in reality, it never equals that, but that's the maximum allocation we can get through the chargeback program. So if all goes right, if we max out everything, the county would be $3.166 million eligible to receive those funds. That's every 5 years we have to sign it. Again, it doesn't really bear, because I know that the front of the court budget is not $573,000, and that's what we're allocated. So it's kind of like I don't call it a fake number, but it doesn't mean a lot that's just our maximum we can get. That's what the state has.
We don't know how much we're gonna get.
No,
it's not, it means we can bill them
Mhm.
up to that amount.
Mhm.
So if our budget's $470,000 instead of 573, then we will get 66% of all 4D billable work, which runs it here anywhere between 80 and 90% of our expenditures. We'll get 66% of that reimbursed to us. So we could set the budget at 573, but we don't have to, we don't need to. They just say, if you bill, you can bill up to this amount based on your history. You're allowed to bill up to this amount. We just have never met that. And because of the way this program works, they give you the numbers and you just have to kind of basically make up a budget for them that sort of looks like what our budget looks like. It might just be 10% more in order to fill to say, hey, we could spend this much for
You can
office
hire
supplies.
some more caseworkers if you want. But that's the number they calculate. And again, in reality, we probably run about 3/4 of it.
Probably 3/4, I would say.
So, but that's the max. So they'll be submitting a contract that the board chair has to sign sometime this summer or this fall.
And end of the summer, I have to submit to the Office of Child Support the budget by the end of the month, this month. So I submit it first. They say, hey, this is okay, and then I bring it back to you for signature. And then that should be good for 5 years. We won't have to do that again for 5 years. And just a heads up, Jennifer Castleman will be doing the exact same thing. I don't know what her numbers are, but she will also, she's she works for the Office of Child Support. So the same process will happen.
So it's
Question?
more informational that
Yeah,
it's
just a heads up.
just so you know.
Questions? Commissioners? Commissioner Scott?
No, you're thinking we're using up about 75% of that.
I would say roughly. I don't know.
Down to 67 cents, yeah.
You got down to
And of that
67.
75%, we get 2/3 of it back.
Yeah, I think our budget this year was 400 and some.
So,
Perfect. Thank you.
Good.
all right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Sheriff related to animal control ordinance. Scott? This was pretty lengthy.
Thanks. Plug that wire in there too.
Did I tell you how much I love my boss?
Just highlighted it, things I had to look at.
Well, and this is a copy of Ross County. So if you recall, we talked about this once before. We had Gladwin's as a template that we're looking at potentially, looking at adopting. That never materialized and it kind of went to sleep for a while. Fast forward to today, Judge Beebe approached Scott and approached me about the animal control ordinance. Again, asked why Ogemaw doesn't have one enacted for Ogemaw. But we just haven't got to that point of adopting it. So she gave us a copy of this. She was a party to the co-authoring this ordinance. And this is what they currently use up in Ross County. So we wanted to bring it to you to start the review process. We have sent it to the county attorney, Don. I don't know if you've received any response.
He's only had it a week, so I'd be surprised.
Yeah, he hasn't really, so we haven't really done much legwork other than get it into his hands so we can start discussions on this, but I want to continue moving forward without at least talking with you about it. Some of the benefits writing under this primarily for district court, currently under the state law. If someone was charged with an offense and they wanted to contest that, it would have to be scheduled for a jury trial. Under an ordinance in Ogemaw County, much like with Ross Common, if they were contest a civil infraction, it would change everything from misdemeanors to civil infractions. And Judge Beebe would be able to handle that through hearings, ticket hearings, basically. So magistrates, and so it would really free up some of the scheduling for the contested cases for animal control violations. Well, there's not a huge number of them, but it does factor into scheduling there. The other key factor is the 80-20% of fines. Writing it under, if you recall, writing it under the state statutes, 80% of that fine, if they're found responsible or guilty, goes to the state, 20% comes to the county. written under a local county ordinance, those numbers reverse, where 80% of any fines levied cost would come to the county, 20% would go to the state. So those are the two key as to why we'd like to keep moving forward with enacting an Ogemaw County Animal Control Officer.
Yeah, you did good.
Did I?
Yeah, because Judge Beebe, I love her. Because I try to get dangerous dogs. Dogs deemed dangerous, and that means they have to have a escape proof kennel. They got to carry $100,000 liability insurance and some other things. And she's deemed 4 of them dangerous. This is how it all started. She said, where's your ordinance? I said, our ordinance was wrote in 1975. And she goes, well, you need to get a copy of Roscommon. She said, I would like to see you enact this ordinance, because she co-wrote it. And so that's how that all came about, and this whole thing. And she was on the thing that, we get 80% of the money. Now you go by the district court, after that, like this person that had unlicensed dog, and it was $289. Another one, and I showed these to the people. I said, you want to get your dog licensed? This is why. One of them was $1,022 for dog at large. There were several. There were 3 dogs, 3 unlicensed dogs. Now the state gets 80% of that money, and we get 20. So if we flip that, it could be a good revenue.
How much different is this ordinance compared to the one the state one that we're utilizing now, or the one in 1970 or whatever you're talking?
Oh, this is light years ahead of what, they still have it as we had a shelter, and I have to take a dog, and it's $1 a day for that on the 1975 ordinance. I'm just writing off a state law.
And there hasn't been anybody challenge that yet?
No.
What's this?
That's the county current, that's the one from 75. I didn't include that on the packet, but well,
So you're currently following the state guidelines?
Yes.
So what are you doing with this? Anything?
Nope.
Oh, okay. It doesn't make-
well, I just showing you this, there is a copy of it.
You want to see it?
The old 1975. That was part.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. Well, I went,
This-
yeah.
How different is this compared to this ordinance compared to the state ordinance?
State doesn't have an ordinance, state has state law. This is following state law. So basically. Is that what you're?
How much different is this compared to what is this any different than what you're currently doing?
This is more detailed.
So more people could be in trouble?
Yes.
Yes.
No, this is 3 pages. Ours is 3 pages long, and theirs.
This is 19.
19. I
Yeah.
think it's got a few more.
I mean, there's some in here for the shelter aspect of it. And we might need to look at that, because. We do have the 50 dog deal. We could. Do a charge of like $40. When I pick a dog up, that's other companies do that. And then charge them a stay of $20 a day. I do that right now. I got one in there, a person went to jail, and it's $20 a day. That getting added on to her restitution to pay back the shelter.
I have a question.
Commissioner Simmons?
The state laws changed a while back. I don't know, probably 6 years ago or so, maybe not that long. About cruelty animals and how you can keep them tied up outside and all that. So is it all applicable in this ordinance
Yes.
right here?
Yes.
Um,
That I'm seeing, yes.
Okay.
If you read it and you find something, please let me know, because I thought it was really good.
well, I have to go back and look at the stuff I got. I have from the state back in my files, and I still do have it.
Because it was done by Judge Beebe and by the lady that runs the shelter in Roscommon. Her name's Dee Dee.
They're pretty on the ball.
Dee Dee's way up there with the Department of Ag and the
Yeah.
laws and stuff. So they really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
When they wrote this. And it gives me more leeway with things to go, and I can do, you know what I mean? Because I'm not out there hammering people on tickets every day. I'm trying to educate them and everything else. And then I start showing them the ordinance, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that. Because when I go out there, I'd say 70% of the people I run into in the country say, I don't need a dog license.
Yeah, because they don't
I don't
know
live in the city. Well, sorry,
if they have one.
But
You get one now, or you go to court and pay a couple $1,000s to get one.
yeah, you know, the dangerous dog thing is what I'm looking at,
Yeah.
and cruelty to animals. Cause it's just getting bad. I mean, we've had, and it's not just our county. We've had an influx of dogs this year, bad.
Really?
I mean, bad.
People turning them in or animal cruelty or what?
Both turning them in and, or just letting them go. And it doesn't matter. I'm getting calls like to South Branch
But I think,
for a dog at large.
but I think the problem is because the economy right now. I noticed with mine, I mean, I just bought cat food today and I spent over $150.
Yeah.
And that cat food will probably last me 3 weeks.
Yep.
You said that awful big cat.
No, they don't, but.
Be prepared.
We have 8 of them.
Ate them.
They like to eat
Mr. Scott, did you
on
have
a regular basis.
or a comment? Go ahead, sir.
Have you been talking with Dee Dee?
Yeah, we mean about the ordinance or?
Yeah.
No, I haven't talked to her about the ordinance.
Like it stronger in something. If she's satisfied exactly with this or after having.
I can ask, I
for a
can call it,
while,
I can call and ask it.
She might want it a little bit stronger.
See where it
Well,
needs to
she's
be.
worked underneath it, so that'd be a legitimate,
Right.
a part of this building process to see.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the fees and expenses in the dog census. I mean, that's something that isn't occur here in Ogemaw County. And I don't know that we'd be looking at implementing that anytime soon because there's.
What's that involved?
Hmm?
What's that involved?
Well, it would have to do with going around and figuring out how many dogs and cats or dogs are in the county and then comparing that to the license list from what I'm reading in this. And then
Take a lot of time.
it would take a lot of time and a lot of expense to go out there and
Yeah.
get the initial done and then
Yeah.
continue. So I think at this point, the fees and expenses and dog census is maybe somewhere down the road.
Yeah. I mean,
If we invest more money in animal control in the county.
Do we rewrite it so that it's easier to do a census?
Well, at the end of the day.
Not doing that now.
At 5 Park?
I work 5 hours a day.
I know, I get it, I get it. Well, I met a Kirtland Warbler counter one day.
Oh,
I says, how do you count a Kirtland Warbler? Because nobody's ever seen one, You listen to their whistle.
Yep.
And that's how they count it. No, okay.
wow.
Well, you drive through the neighborhood and hear a few barking, well, mark them down,
That's what I meant.
Okay.
So I appreciate this. I think
But
we
you
need
have
time
to
to
recognize
recognize that.
that part.
No, yeah, and if anybody has any questions, y'all got my phone number?
Is there any other counties that you talk with on a regular basis?
Oh, Aranac and Iosco,
But
I'm in
yeah, that's
contact
right.
with
We
them
just
on a
wanted to
daily
touch
basis.
base, make sure that.
Yes.
One is continuing.
Up to date?
It's in depth and again, we
One
haven't
does,
even
one
talked to
doesn't.
the county attorney yet.
And they're
Last
looking
time
at
I talked to
this-
him,
this one.
we used Gladwin as the potential template. He was not real enthused about using Gladwin and
And-
talked about rewriting the whole thing
Yeah.
himself, so.
and that kind of,
It's a good start. This is a good start, boilerplate.
that kind of set me on a wrong edge.
Mhm.
When, okay, here's an ordinance that's already being enacted, looked at by a lawyer, and he's knocking it down over there.
Right.
He's writing tickets, he writes more tickets than I do. And the lawyer wants to take it and rewrite them.
Right. I just think we need to look at this and see what is maybe not relevant for Ogemaw County versus, not everything, obviously.
And there may be
Will
some
be.
that would be relevant to Ogemaw County that's not in here.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So we'll take a peek at it, but
With the cat thing like you do, I mean,
I skimmed it.
What I
but
mean,
I-
with a cat thing like I do.
Excessive.
What
Well,
kind
again,
of
there'll
ordinance would be there?
the Attorney and a little bit more feedback. There would be another draft before you start to, but I just wanted to make sure that you were.
and I just want to say thank you guys for the truck and everything else and
I just
all
want
of
to make sure
it
that,
done for me.
I want to make sure there's teeth in it.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I'd like some feedback on and something about the cat thing that you do. What does that mean?
The what? Yeah.
You said something about the cat and the cat thing that you do.
Well, if there's any cat stuff that you might want to put in this ordinance, because you're you do the TNR.
Oh, yeah.
And I will be the first one to say, keep it out of the ordinance.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
there's no authority for counties to do anything with cats.
There's no
Right.
law.
That's right. There's not.
Because
The only thing is applicable law that the state has is about poisoning and killing and,
It's cruelty,
yeah.
any kind of cruel.
And that should fall under a
It's
general
already in the
animal,
law.
not specific to a certain
Yeah, and then we have we could. There's a gentleman that has 2 emus out on 76. In a 6x6 kennel,
What is it?
an emu,
What's that?
an ostrich,
Oh,
2 of
could
them.
have just said an ostrich.
Well, they're not ostriches, but they look like them.
Okay.
No, I've taken that to the prosecutor and there's no laws against it and there's nothing I can do about it. I get calls twice a week on that. You know, and here they implemented it as a livestock.
So then if this is implemented, then you are able to do something.
Yeah, yes.
So more people are going to be in
More people are gonna be abide by the laws.
better guidelines.
Yes. Because Mr. Person out there is not wanting to do nothing with his emus, so. But
Wow,
And licensing is up, I will say, I checked, looked at the numbers and we're almost to our projection, and we still have several months to go, so what you're doing and then with the
Yeah.
shelter on board.
yeah,
now.
they don't know about that, right? That the shelter now sells dog licenses. We got that all taken care of and.
With the contract there, and we're seeing, like I said, we're almost at where we projected, so we should be
Yeah.
surpassing that here shortly.
Like,
So
I talk with Aranek and Iosco on a daily basis, and Aranek she's full. And she's looking for fosters to get dogs out there so she can have room for emergency ones, and Iosco's doing the same thing. And we're on one at capacity, so. And the people are dumping dogs in weird places like South Branch. They don't do that up there. They just kind of take care of their own. Well, I've picked up 4 dogs in the last 2 months up there.
Probably the same person. Can I just make a quick comment? Sounds to me like this is something that I'm glad we're looking into, because I think we really need to update this. But I think back to what Commissioner Scott said, I think it'd be a great tool to have a good conversation with Judge Beebe and see if she has any more thoughts to really make this right.
You have a good conversation. Judge Beebe.
Yeah. Well, I already had,
I'm making a joke.
Judge Beatty and I had a good conversation. I think he was referring to as your Dee, the counterpart up there.
Well, I'll also get with the judge too.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
my conversation with her,
this was kind of a like, I was in the office and she was like, come here. And let's talk. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Did that for her.
I think you're next to corrections facility body scanner proposal.
Oh, you want me to stay up here for this?
I think
This
that-
is questions.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm not gonna model it, but.
please.
This,
I don't know if I ever gave you one.
this is the only proposal we received for the body scanner. We did send direct solicitation to 7 firms that make this kind of equipment. The breakdown on the cost, you've got all the details in here. I did, just for full disclosure, there are about 4 or 5 pages of images that I did not include here. They're a big graphic and I didn't really feel comfortable putting those out for the public and you don't need to see it. I think you get an idea of what the machine will do based on what's in here. The total cost, the base cost of the machine is $139,000.
Yeah.
There are 2 options, additional warranties. We could get an additional 3 years of warranty for $22,500 or go with 5 years for $37,500. Obviously, those are optional. And one other option that's offered is an ability for anybody who steps into the machine to take their body temperature. That's an additional $20,000, but that I would caution would not be eligible for payment on the opioid fund because there's nothing I could do to connect that to opioid anything unless opioids somehow cause fever. I can't make a connection there. So if you were to go with that option, I would suggest probably commissary. If we felt it was that important, but the base cost and the 1-year warranty, $139,000. I am 100% convinced, even after I've been in on 2 seminars now on what's eligible for opioid funding, and because this is a preventative measure, this is preventing the drug from getting into the jail, which is very possible. There's stories all over the media about that. This prevents it, keeps the opioid from causing any further damage. So that's the gist of it. You can see the response from the vendor here. I really like what they did about writing the word understood next to each of the points, for instance, and the non-collusion and so on. That's fantastic. And it kind of gives me the idea of maybe we'll make that a form for vendors to fill out in the future, that they have to check the box that says they understood. And that's really important when we get to things like insurance, because I have heard more than once, well, I didn't know I had to have that coverage. Well, it's right there. So if you don't check it, then I'll know. But anyway, I digress. But that's the only proposal we received. I think this is the same company that, okay,
Same company was presented to us.
yeah. And they were, I mean,
They're
they're,
they're the only ones.
yeah.
There's no sense of going fishing again.
I say we go with 5-year warranty.
5 year?
Yeah.
Was there five, is that
3 or 5?
37,000?
It's additional, there's 1 year that comes with the machine, and this will be an additional 5 years, and the total cost at 37,500 added to the 39.
And that can be paid with opiate.
Pardon me?
That can be paid.
Yes, because it's for the machine. Yeah.
Okay. The only thing, I don't want to dwell on that temperature thing too long, but if COVID comes back, temperature was a big thing.
Wait, but we're already paying a nurse that's there on staff. At least
Just
so many
saying,
hours per
anybody
day.
that walks in that had a temperature, you know,
I got all that in there about this thing now.
we have
Gone.
20,000 in commissary.
The warranties and all that sort of
It's
stuff
covered.
was in here.
It's-
Don't get it.
Go
I don't
on the
know.
last page. That's what.
I hate to think COVID will come back, but you know, they're inventing things all the
No.
time.
That's the actual.
No,
Kool-Aid.
Oh, that's right. It is, yeah. Yeah,
nope.
sorry.
How do you guys feel about the 5-year warranty?
Oh, yeah.
After what we know, what we just went
Absolutely.
through with that other machine.
As long as this company doesn't go broke, 5 years. We'll be all right.
I have a question.
Just a thought.
Is there a timeline then if we would pull the trigger on this soon, when this would be installed, or a rough timeline then?
I don't have a timeline with this. I don't recall seeing one in the proposal, but I can certainly ask them. It sounds like they have these machines. So I don't think it would take long. I think it's going to be, the time consuming part is to go over to the facility and find out where we're going to put it and where's the power source, issues like that. And I think otherwise the machine, it sounds like they, I don't want to say it's like a, a car, but they've got a bunch of them sitting in a warehouse somewhere. But it really sounds like they've got a few that probably wouldn't take them long to get it here.
Okay.
You called, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this is an item I think we all agree on, especially having the opiate funding. You just brought up one of our biggest challenges of who's going to do that. We're already struggling with maintenance and everything else. So who is going to do that so we can keep this moving forward when it comes to going over to the jail, making sure what needs to be done, making for the electrical, the placement. So who's going to do that for us?
Well, it depends on what the requirements are. And again, I'm no electrician, but I know that when you hit a certain level, you've got to have a certain license to come in and do that work. I don't know what this takes as far as power, what it requires. And even if I did know, it wouldn't do me any good. I have no idea what it
I would think there's installation. With $139,000?
Yeah, this is
It is what
that
it
was
is.
specifically cited in the RFP. It's purchase and installation of.
We got to have the site prep.
But yeah, if we have to bring power in or something like that, that's probably an additional cost. That's not
That's fair.
our
We-
building, our infrastructure.
We have an electrical inspector that's qualified, I'm sure.
Sure, he could help with that, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could do it.
Paul, did you have
I
any?
mean.
You called when you originally came to us, because that was a question at that point in time, like, is this on back order? What's the, and you said, no, it sounded like it would be readily available.
It sounded like that last time we talked to him, so I don't think the turnaround, the biggest, again, what he said, I think the biggest challenge would be identifying where we're gonna put it in the facility where it's gonna do what we need to do, and then the training to get everybody up to speed to use it, so.
I think that'll be part of this company.
It is, it's just a matter of getting all the people through it and getting them understanding, and I think we could see it sooner rather than later from what I'm seeing and from the conversations we've had.
So this is coming from the commissary fund.
This, the base cost and the warranty, should you agree to do that, would come, I'm suggesting from the opioid fund.
Okay, I'm just asking. Because there was two things mentioned, was the commissary fund and the opiate, so that's why I'm asking. Now I know.
That's my opinion. Any other questions, comments?
All related costs are included, right? Installation.
Yeah, it's purchase and installation. Yeah.
How much we getting from opiate?
Commissioner, anything? Okay, so we'll have that on for resolution.
Okay.
Anything else?
Couple of
We'll
minutes.
start working on the policy as far as how to use that and proper protocols and stuff. That'll be something like,
They should have a template,
I'm sure there's something that we can.
$139,000.
Sure, they're gonna
Should
help.
be said or not.
$6,000, right?
That's a house. No, not really.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Controller transition plan.
We're putting that on for Thursday,
Oh,
This is Thursday.
next week.
I didn't know that. Did I get an email on that? Did I miss something?
No, the,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I said yes. I thought everybody
We've
was.
already moved on to another
yeah, I was
subject here.
daydreaming or something. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't have more time to put into this before this meeting, but this will give you an idea of where my thought process has gone so far. No color or elaboration or fancy fonts or anything. So the question was, for conversation today, my thoughts on the transition plan for the functions of the controller. And I've really come up with three options, and I'm not saying this is an exhaustive list, but three options that I think are within our scope of ability. And really the first one would be, I'm simply calling it the ideal option. If we had the best of all worlds, unlimited resources, how would we set this up? And for a county our size, the functions that are primarily in question would be, I'm just calling an HR specialist, for lack of other terms right now. That's the person that does the payroll and benefits administration. As far as the things like contract interpretation and any kind of disciplinary action and so forth, those will remain with me. I'm doing those now. I'm talking about functions that we're not doing in my office at the moment. Currently, the payroll and benefits administration is being addressed through the chief deputy county clerk as part of her functions right now. The second position would be an accountant position. That's just the day-to-day accounting, the accounts payable that come in when revenues are coming in, policy enforcement for purchases and things of that nature. Again, this is a function right now, at least with the accounts payable that the chief deputy county clerk is doing. Treasurer's office does a lot of the day-to-day accounting, but I don't know that it would be directly related to what I'm doing necessarily, because the treasurer has certain statutory responsibilities. And frankly, that's what they're fulfilling right now. There's not a great deal of the day-to-day stuff that happens. So as I said, right now, they're currently combined position, or at these two positions were a single position, then it would reduce the cost of the personnel, obviously. But just doing a really quick review of what the cost of those positions would be. I looked at our current roster, assumed $38,000 salary and let that ride through. So that would include now anything to do with retirement, any taxes that we have to pay, the FICA tax, but the health insurance, assuming it would have to be a family plan just to hedge our bets. We're looking at about $150,000 for two positions. And I can tell you right now, we don't have it. So while this would be ideal, not really realistic for us. There would also be some additional non-personnel costs that we incur, called the papers and pens, but just those non-personnel type activities. I'm estimated would be between $5,000 and $7,000 to do that. The pros of doing this, obviously, all these functions will be consolidated. There would be no personnel loss in any other offices. But the cons, the cost, the startup, the workstation costs. Obviously, we would have to find a place to put them, and then the desks and everything that go with that. One-time costs, physically locating where we're going to put the personnel, and of course, learning curve, which you would have of any new employee. So option two would take the arrangements that we have right now, but simply transfer the personnel who would do the payroll, benefits and accounting functions to the controller administrator office. So that literally takes basically an individual from an office, move it over. So no new personnel. Obviously, that would reduce the liability of having to hire 2 new employees. All functions would still be consolidated and any new costs will really be minimal. The cons again on this, the physical location, well, this is going to be an issue no matter what we do. And it's just a matter of where are we going to fit this peg into the system? And that's a matter of literally the physical space. There would be a reduction of personnel in the sending office and, put it right out there. If we were to move the person who currently occupies the chief deputy county clerk position to here, then the clerk loses that position. And typically I don't look at the individual, but in this case, the individual is not only doing the personnel and benefits, but is also one of the most knowledgeable people in the office, besides the clerk, when it comes to elections. And that's kind of an important function of that office. So there's no guarantee that we would get that individual to move over. But no matter what, if we're moving, literally having our personnel numbers remain the same, literally moving, somebody's going to be disrupted somewhere to make that work. If we were to have to hire somebody new or bring somebody new over, there would be this loss of institutional memory, if you will. So one way or another, somebody loses. If the individual holding that chief deputy clerk position comes over to perform just this function, the clerk loses the institutional memory for the elections. If we have to move somebody else to do this, now we've lost our investment in things like the NOVA time and setting all that up and making sure it works, the BSNA transition with payroll and so on. And these are not insurmountable, but they would be difficulties, at least at the startup. So the learning curve, if you will, with both the technology and the policies, we'd have to, which I think is probably the lesser of the evils, but teaching somebody what our policies are would have to come into play. And then the third option is just simply leaving things status quo the way they are right now, with everyone understanding the various roles and responsibilities that each have, in effect, continuing as we have. Honestly, I put really little else into this in terms of thought up till now. I mean, these things would need to be ferreted out. If there was a specific direction the board would want to go, I would not be surprised if after thinking about this a little bit more that we come up with maybe 1 or 2 other options that aren't here, but this is just my initial thoughts on where this would go. And this might be something that maybe we go for one of the other options, but we transition it over, a couple of years or however that works. I just haven't put that level of thought into it to project out a calendar or anything like that. But these are the 3 scenarios that I see most likely for us.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yeah, I have a comment. When we made you controller, that was not my understanding of what was going to happen. My understanding was going to happen was there'd be 2 people gone because you're taking over so many other rules. So much of this, my option doesn't agree with your option, is moving payroll over to your area. And that person can be the person that answers your phone, does the payroll, etc. And my understanding also was that it was going to be an individual coming out of the treasurer's office. So my understanding was when we approved all this, that 2 people would be gone because we can't afford you and afford them also. And that was my understanding from the get-go. And now you're saying we're going to keep everybody. I don't see that happening.
What, I'm sorry, Rita.
No, I see payroll being your human resource person and moving down where Kelly is. And then that person can answer the phone and be the person that answers the phone for you. And then another person coming out of the treasurer's office, evidently, that was my understanding because of the roles that you'd be taking on more responsibility. We give you more money. And you always talk about, we got to watch the money that we spend and we got to control it. Now we're spending more money for you and we're still keeping everybody else. That doesn't make any sense to me. Then why did we give you that position when everybody else stays? I don't understand.
I think going forward, and I'm not gonna totally disagree with Commissioner Simmons. You and I had this conversation prior to the new role. And had thrown around some ideas of some shifting. I would like a list of your responsibilities as a controller now, versus maybe, I guess, what new roles you're doing. I don't totally disagree. I don't know if I would say gone, but the conversations that were happening, I felt in the meetings that took place, both private meetings or one-on-one meetings, were more people moving out of offices down to you. So I'm not going to totally disagree by what she's saying, but I think we need a clearer role of what new responsibilities you're taking on and who's currently doing them. I think we need a better picture because this to me does not paint any picture at all.
Well, that option two really is what you just described. That's the one that moves the personnel.
It doesn't say what personnel, it doesn't say, I mean, I want more specific.
Like I said, I have not had time to really flesh
Correct.
that out.
I appreciate that, but I would like more information of what roles, who's doing what. I don't disagree. He did take on more roles. We need to know who's doing those roles. That's why I was very shocked when all of this came down, that there was more, I don't say kickback, I guess, from certain departments, knowing that this was going to happen. Or a very good possibility that this was going to happen. So, Commissioner Mayhew, do you have anything?
No, you guys said it.
Commissioner Simmons, something else?
I like all the people that work in this county though. But because of this change that we've made with you being controller, administrative controller, my understanding was that there'd be 2 personnel gone that would help cover the expenses of your office. And I still expect that to happen, unless you can convince me otherwise. It shouldn't happen. But, then I don't understand why we made you controller.
We need more,
If nothing's gonna change.
we need
When
more
you say
information.
gone, do you mean terminated? Or what do you mean by gone?
I mean that the payroll clerk goes to him, works for him. You need a deputy clerk, then you make somebody else your deputy clerk that's in that office. You can train somebody else on elections. I mean, everybody can be trained. And you can train more than one. But I don't see keeping all the personnel that we have right now. I thought the whole thing was for him to be a controller, to be in charge of more things. So if he's in charge of more things,
Right, what other people were currently doing? We need to know those specifics.
I don't understand
I
it.
agree.
So that
Commissioner,
means you're
Commissioner
trying
Wiltie,
to
do
take
you have
somebody
something?
out of my office?
Commissioner Wiltie, do you have something?
I mean, I know Tim said this, it's the start, so I agree, we definitely need to see more. We weren't in some of those conversations before, but I never ever had heard or was under an interpretation that we were gonna be eliminating jobs.
But our controller now has responsibilities and roles, from what I currently understand, that other individuals have. So we need to know exactly what the controller's roles are and who's doing what. We need more information, plain and simple.
I agree.
Commissioner Scott?
Well, I agree with that, but I'm really, I missed one meeting and I've gone back on YouTube and watched it and I don't remember seeing half of what I'm hearing right now. By naming him controller, we gave him a level of authority. And of course, with a level of authority comes responsibility. But I don't think it was the hands-on responsible. I don't think it was the data entry and everything else. As far as where somebody sits in the building, that's obsolete. I mean, by using email and transferring joint computers, you can do everything. I mean, you can do it down the street. You can do it in another town. I mean, we can communicate by Zoom, by email, by everything electronically anymore. We don't have to be right here. You don't have to physically move to another office to. The old days of shuffling a piece of paper over to the next cubicle, that's old, that's old.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Hang on, Commissioner Scott.
Sorry.
Well, I'm just, I just haven't heard all this stuff and I don't know. And then somebody out of the treasurer's office, which position in the treasurer's office would be eliminated?
We don't know. We don't know. We need information of
Okay,
what this
okay,
controller role,
that's
there is a
fine.
significant pay increase. What exactly all this entails?
It was Worth $4,000, $5,000 a year.
It was more than that.
Well, he went for 10%. He backed off to about 5%. So.
Maybe I was unaware of currently at, but I guess anyways.
and-
Commissioner Simmons, did you have something?
Yeah, human resources is the one who does the payroll and does the benefits and stuff like that. And if that's, I just think that human resources shouldn't be in the clerk's office. I think it should be with him.
There'll be more to come. I guess, can you pass information along to us as we and put it on the next committee of the whole as well,
Sure.
as we gather more information?
Good idea.
I think that way we all are pretty clear on who's doing what. Anything else, guys? Item C, Hope Grant Agreement.
You have the copy of the MISTA agreement in the iPads. This is a grant that you've already approved housing to apply for. They received it. The total grant amount is $262,500. And Leanne will be back here on Monday and I'll confirm with her. The people at MISTA would like to or have offered to come up here with one of those big chairs and do a presentation, if you will, for the county. It's just kind of a PR piece. And I think that would also help get the word out about the program. So those who are eligible would know where to go to apply for assistance. But we would still need the board approval to actually accept the grant.
Absolutely. Questions, comments? You just need a resolution to accept this grant?
Right.
Commissioners, anything?
I'd have to read it before.
You happen to
We're accepting.
know if that was the dollar amount she asked for, because she has a track record of getting more than she asks for.
True.
But no, this is just grant money coming through MISTA. Heck, yeah, we should accept it.
Okay.
There's no doubt. that
Anything,
people
Commissioner
in
Wiltie?
our county could use it.
No.
Item D, Clean Air Policy Amendment.
The clean air policy is lacking section on enforcement. We talk about, in effect, smoking isn't allowed in the buildings and so on. To enforce a policy like this, typically there is a statement on there that says there is a consequence for violating the policy. This one lacked that statement, so that's the only change that's proposed. The purpose for this is that everybody is then on notice. That if you do violate the policy, there is a consequence, potential for you. Without that, theoretically, one could claim they didn't realize there was a punishment that would come along with it. And it all gets to the heart of due process.
So I guess say they're caught once, I guess is what's the disciplinary, does that need to be in here as far as what the disciplinary action is?
It doesn't, but typically you go through a progressive discipline. If it's just this and somebody was like in a doorway smoking, it's likely a verbal to start with. If it happens the second time, then there's a written reprimand, third time suspension, fourth time termination. Now, I wouldn't necessarily be, strictly following that because maybe there was some extenuating reason why, a second, I don't know what it would be in this case, but whatever it might be, maybe a second warning, verbal warning would be appropriate. So you take it on a case by case basis, but you don't want to lay it out saying there will be progressive discipline and these are the steps. You want to take them on a case by case basis, but in this case, you typically don't go right to suspension or anything like that.
Questions, comments?
I'm not a smoker. And I know the hospitals have no smoking on campus.
All of our
Isn't that
medical,
correct?
all of our medical facilities, yep.
I know that makes the parking lot high score a pretty popular place, but, you know. That's where I would go, but yes, you have to put enforcement in, you have to have teeth in any policy. Absolutely, you have to.
Okay,
The same thing we're talking about the dog ordinance, the same thing, you gotta have teeth in it, you gotta have, you know. So I would say, put it on the agenda to pass.
it would be nice, but I know sure that there's not a spot. It just would be nice if they had an area that was a little bit more private, I guess. Just, it's like right when you, but anyways. All right, nothing else?
You mean to smoke?
Yes, they had a private, like an area.
Yeah, put them in the
Yeah.
parking lot across the street.
Very quick parking lot.
There you go.
Item E, surplus property auction.
This is some other property that we'd like to put out for auction. It is frankly old phones. There is a possibility that because there are so many of those that we might even get more than $5 for them. They're not obsolete at this point, and there may be somebody who could use a system like that. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up at the last meeting, I said that we had sold some vehicles and things and listed some prices. Turns out those auctions weren't closed yet. By the time they closed, I think Kelly sent you an email out earlier this week.
Yep.
There's some substantial dollars in there. Yeah, I just totally misunderstood the message I received that bid, but those auctions were still open and I'm glad they were. And I don't know that we've had one that was quite that successful since we've been doing this.
Good job,
So
Kelly.
phones is the only surplus item we have right now.
Sharing.
Yeah, apparently there's a lot of them too.
We shared it.
Tom wants to.
I asked them when they came to look where they heard on Facebook.
You guys don't have anything else over there surplus you want to get rid of?
Working on it.
Poker tables?
We're-
They're not there still.
They're there.
Item F, so we want to put, you don't need any resolution for that, do you? Oh, we
Yeah,
do.
you have to formally say, yes, go ahead and sell it. That's
Okay.
just the way our
Please.
surplus property works. So,
Any issues with that, guys?
No.
Opioid Advisory Committee appointments.
so you have a list of 11 persons that we've heard back from who've expressed interest in being on the committee. We are still waiting to hear back from Mike Bowers, but I'm pretty confident if we were to ask him to be a representative for EMS, that he would jump at the opportunity. One of the conferences I attended, they suggested having the medical examiner be a part of this. Being that we contract for that service, I don't know, I feel kind of funny about that first and second, it's just from the point of when the medical examiner comes into play, I'm not sure what role the individual will play in terms of preventing opioid abuse, because he's kind of on the, you know,
He's
at
already,
the end of the line. Yeah.
he's at the end, Craig,
Yeah.
end of the line.
Yeah.
How come nobody from McLaren's on here? Did you reach out to Anthony? And he didn't respond? Really? Okay.
Well, if the rest of the commission's okay with these, I'd concur and let's.
What about Mike?
On ball on the roll.
I think you'd be safe in assuming he would accept the appointment if asked.
I don't want to
Well,
assume anything.
You know, I office today for some
Let's
signatures.
just-
He explained them all
Just
to me.
add the emergency
You could
coordinator.
direct him to be on it, but that matter.
I will. He will.
Get the meetings going.
I'll confirm.
Absolutely. So you need a resolution for appointment, but is this gonna be, I guess, are we looking at a time frame? I guess is there?
My thoughts are this, MAC has an individual they've hired that is specializing in opioid settlement. And it's really actually quite impressive at her grasp of what's allowed, like for spending and some of the target type projects. And what they will do, and I'll reach out as soon as we have our committee, is that she will come up here and will help the committee develop a plan. And we'll take a look at some statistics that she's already gathered for all the counties, but particularly focused on Ogemaw about specifically what are our issues with opioids. And we'll talk about not only the cases that we've had, but any of the deaths that have resulted, and some other findings that they've been able to develop. I'm not even sure who's keeping track of all those stats, but they contact the hospitals, they contact, let's say EMS, but your first responders, have a lot of good data to work with. And she's definitely, as I said, been impressive on her expertise about what the intent of these settlements are. And they are targeting prevention, obviously for one thing, but also targeting education to make sure those who have to come in contact or who do come in contact periodically with those with opioid issues, what to expect and how to respond. What do we do for rehabilitation and just a whole array of things. And I don't, again, think it's gonna take us that long to come up with a plan, but I think having that expertise at the table with this committee will help us really do a good job in terms of targeting the funds.
I think that's a smart.
So you need a resolution to approve these committee members.
Right.
Okay, that's our next step. Yes, are you guys okay with that?
Absolutely. Who's gonna speak with Mike Bowers?
I can call him. He was just in my office today
I talked to him.
for some paperwork. Are you gonna see him tomorrow or the next? He's sleeping at Hardwood Lake.
I actually been talking, we have that outing at McLaren next Saturday.
Oh, then
I've been
go
talking
ahead.
with him and Pete quite a bit, so I'll reach out to Mike
Okay,
and I'll let you know right away, Tim.
Okay.
are you guys good? Ogemaw Hills recreational property.
Okay, I was hoping tonight to have had some quotes for you, but I don't. We've reached out to a couple of our local surveyors about that specialized survey that we would need to do as suggested by the attorney. Once we have that, we can really then begin to develop all the other documents that we need to make this happen. But without it, we'd be ill-advised to try to define things like a deed, any restrictions or everything else that we might want to include. The other items that the attorney listed literally are, just call them administrative for lack of another word, but just making sure certain things are filed where they need to be filed, resolutions are drawn up, agreements with the township, but we're really waiting on that survey.
Okay,
I have a question to ask.
Go ahead.
What specific property do you mean by Ogemaw Hills recreation property?
It's at M55 and Dam Road, if I'm not mistaken, on the
Okay.
intersection, but anything that's associated with that complex. And what the survey will do is not just define the boundaries of the property itself, but will tell you where the buildings are, what they are. In effect, it's a package deal. So these are all things that are part of the agreement that we draw up. And we'll also take a look at, there was I guess a dispute many years ago over one of the property boundaries. It will establish whatever legally needs to happen so that everybody understands that that is the boundary and that is what we would be selling.
That's when French Industries was sold. And they took no owners, that's when it was.
did you?
So, does that also, does this all include the Field of Dreams?
Yeah.
It does,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
Commissioner Mayhew, do you have anything?
No, on that opioid thing, when they sent us to that class up there to learn to be commissioners,
Oh, yeah,
there was a guy up there and he was either from Petoskey or north of Traverse City, but anyhow, on the opioid money, he told us that they spent, I think, $300,000 and got a financial institution. And they got, I want to say 57 million and bought a college. And he said it was money well spent because they couldn't come back onto them because they had to go through this group of people they hired. And I mean, I don't know nothing about the opioid deal, but they have, that's what they did.
with their money.
Yeah, and he said they didn't burn up the whole 300,000. But they did get 57 million.
Anything
It was
on,
up there, that guy was telling us.
anything on this property?
No, I just on that opioid deal, I mean, I don't know, it was
Right now, I think we're just going forward with the committee, but there'll be more, definitely more to come on that,
Right.
how to spend money. Commissioner Simmons?
I have one more comment, because there is, for the Field of Dreams and stuff, there's already, a committee that kind of takes care of all that. And what happens to that committee? I mean, are they gone? Are they what? They just disappear. I mean, they put this.
No, that's
together.
the committee that's asking to buy it. They're the ones trying to get it
Jimmy Lucas and that,
through the, huh?
Jimmy Lucas?
Yeah, they're going through the township trying to get it.
All right, I did not know
They
that.
want the township to own it so that they can apply for grant
I
money.
got it. I got
Yeah,
it.
they came to us before
Yeah.
before last year.
Before last year.
Jimmy came here.
Right, no, but it was before
Jim
the new
Lucas came
commission.
right here and asked us.
I was not here then.
Oh, I know it.
I'm just asking a simple question.
No, yeah, it's simple.
I don't need a book report.
Oh, I just want to get to the end of it.
Okay, Commissioner Wiltie,
I'm glad you're at the end of it.
Commissioner Simmons, Commissioner Wiltie.
I'm good.
Okay, there's gonna be more information to come. School deputy statistics. I see these nice little graphs.
Yeah.
I'll put these together.
Well, that's me in Excel. Now,
Perfect.
I do have a hard copies here. I wasn't sure this was gonna make it with the power situation today, to the iPads.
It wasn't on there last night, correct?
It was not. I had the numbers, but I hadn't organized it where you could look at it, in picture form. I'll walk you through this, and this is just what's on the books right now, without any other analyses going into it. On all occasions, the graphs on the left will refer to the school resource deputy at West Branch Rose City. The graphs on the right will be the same thing, but for Whittemore Prescott. So that's consistent through each of these two pages.
Not the paper problem.
The first one,
Thank you.
the top two anyway, are looking at how the hours for these officers have been allocated so far. So this is from the beginning of the fiscal year on October 1 through today. So this is very, very much up to date. And with West Branch Rose City, you can see regular pay has accounted for 1,172 hours, comp pay 171, PTO 99, holiday premium and holiday pay, premium at 7, holiday pay at 88. To tell you what those are, if any of our deputies under contract, if they work a holiday, then they receive a holiday premium for working that in addition to the holiday pay itself. So that's really super overtime because you're being asked to work on a holiday. Over at Whittemore Prescott, you can see the regular pay hours at 11:34. I have a little bit of a discrepancy here between the holiday premium and the holiday pay, and I think there's just one of those days has been put in the wrong column is all. They should be the same on their holiday pay. They receive the same holidays, so there shouldn't be a discrepancy there. I suspect that it's the 4 hours or so discrepancy that's in there has to do with how that holiday premium is broken out. Not sure. I have to do a little bit more digging, but that's relatively minor issue. The next two graphics show you the hours that have been allocated to the road patrol millage. And a little bit more about that in a second, but in the West Branch Rose City, you can see 61 hours of overtime pay, 39 regular, 43 in comp. The 61 in overtime pay, you might recall the sheriff at a meeting or two ago was talking about the officer acting as the trainer for the, I'm escaping, it's the
Target or range.
yeah, there's a, yeah. He does, that's the in-house instructor for all the deputies. And so that's why you see that in that case, or a big reason why. Over at the Whittemore Prescott, in that case, this is, the officer literally filling those times when he's not working as the school resource officer, being on the road. And that's why you see the regular pay in each of their cases. Now, this is an area I've talked to the sheriff about, and I mentioned last time we discussed this. I think we can be a little bit more transparent in terms of the West Branch Rose City officer, because we know we're going to have obligations for training each year. We know that. So there's no reason why we can't show that in our budget. This isn't really a school resource officer function. This is a function of, in this case, training the deputies with the office. So we can do something a little bit different so you can see that in the budget each year instead of having to think, well, okay, is this being charged off to the school contract, or is it, really, a cost that we're going to expect to find? So we'll work on that. But I think this gets to the question too that did come up of, are these officers working on the road during the off times? This would suggest that they are. I couldn't give you any more detail than that, just that this is how the breakdown has come down for the hourly allocations. The next page, the top two are just showing the breakdown, just what percentage has gone to road patrol, what percentage has been school resource officer to date. And you can see a big difference between the two. The 10% of the West Branch Rose City officers' time has been dedicated to road patrol activities, where 17% of the Whittemore Prescott has been. And that's just probably a matter of scheduling. But again, you can see the two functions working well. The next graphs need a little bit more work yet. One of the questions that was raised was about overtime and how overtime is accrued and where is the expense coming from? Well, the second part of the question I can't answer yet, but I can say right now, I can tell you what time has been earned and what time was used through the entire fiscal year. So the blue bar is what's earned, the red bar is what's used. Under the contract, the compensatory time is paid out at the end of the fiscal year. So it's supposed to start out fresh, October 1 each year. And so that's why you don't see a whole lot of time accrued, obviously before that. I want to put you down to that paragraph I pulled out of the contract. And this is, again, was a subject a couple of meetings ago. The school resource deputies are assigned to 8 hours on the days that they're working. That's what the contract says. The idea is if they're working more than that, then that's extra compensation. That's extra cost really to the school that should be coming back to the county. I can't tell you right now where those hours were earned, but we're working on it. The Novatime system apparently is able to distinguish between what was earned on road, what was earned at the school. So before we get into any deep discussion about, well, have we been donating a lot of time to the schools, we need to do a little bit more digging just to make sure that we have the right numbers. But it gives you an idea of where the comp time is on a monthly basis. I obviously have this broken down daily if we wanted to see it, that at that level of detail. You can see in one of the cases with the Whittemore Prescott officer, where I really hedge my bets. There's a lot of hour here, hour there kind of things, which you might expect at the school, covering a football game or something like that. But there's a couple of spots where there are 6 hours that are in there. And I'm pretty sure the deputy did not work 6 hours at the school on Christmas Eve, pretty sure. So it's obviously a road patrol cost, but that's the distinction that we want to make here to really get into the weeds as to whether or not this arrangement with the schools is working for us. The other thought that I had as I'm going through this, we know that there are times that the school is not in session, so our officers aren't there this time of year. School's out. We know they're going to be on the road for a couple of months here in the summer. So we want to be able to distinguish where they are before we start saying, well, school, you need to pay more money because you had these additional hours. It might well work out. The funding that they're already providing through the contract, the $75,000 a year, is adequate to cover when they're in the school. The schools aren't necessarily responsible for what we do in the summertime and where those officers are assigned. So by the time we get all this wrapped up, you'll be able to, without a doubt, make your call one way or another on how you want that to go. I would also point out that on that narrative that you see that the school resource deputies can have their schedules flexed. So if there is an activity at night, the officer can be asked to come in at noon instead of 8 o'clock or something along those lines to make that adjustment. The downside to that is obviously, if school is in session in the morning, we don't have a school resource deputy there. It's that service is not available. So that's the give and take that the sheriff has to deal with. Is this, do we need to do an overtime arrangement? Can we afford to leave a gap in the coverage? And we leave that to law enforcement expertise to tell us whether or not that's a resource well allocated. So, those are the the constant give and take that the administrators have to contend with. Hope this is useful to you. I will get the breakdown on the overtime so you can see exactly where that's being earned. And I think it would be important that if it's being earned in one of these functions, that it's also taken and applied to that function and not crossed over between road patrol and school resource.
Yeah, I appreciate this breakdown. I think it is highly useful, but looking at that overtime, 61 hours of overtime looks like quite a bit. I think if that is being used for training, I think that needs to be specified versus it's on the road, whether it's training, that needs to be broke down further. Where that overtime's at, in my opinion. There's a pretty big difference there between those two. Comments, Commissioner Scott, you brought this up.
Well, comp time
Yep.
is much higher. I'll wait to hear. I'll wait to hear more of a breakdown, but that's considerable. When you divide that into an 8-hour day, that's 4 weeks. That's over 4 weeks of time off. I mean, I don't, if I was a deputy, another deputy in the department, I'd kind of want to know why my fellow deputy gets another 4 weeks of time off, paid time off, more than I get. Fairness.
Commissioner Wiltie?
Yeah, I really enjoy seeing this, but I want to see more. I know Tim's gonna look into more and get this tightened down some more, so. This is some interesting things, and yeah, we do need to look into this some more. Sure.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yeah, Bart, I'm taking it because some of this overtime is because of functions after school. Is that correct?
Some of it is.
Well, then, for those costs, I think the school owes us. When they want officers to be there, when those games are gonna be, and how much time they expect, and they pay for it. If it's making the officers stay overtime, then they pay for it. If they want it, then they have to pay for it.
I just think there needs to be better track on the overtime.
Well, but the school needs to pay for that. Shouldn't be us paying for that. Is that in the contract?
Well, that's what it's saying in that excerpt that I provided for you. The contract is having that deputy on a full-time basis of 8 hours a day for those days when school is in session. So that's our foundation to work from. So if we're going to be there 8 hours and then we're going to be there for an additional 2 or 3 hours to cover, football game, basketball game, whatever else might be going on, then that would be the additional.
You should show another extra cost in the contract.
Right. I mean, because it's more than 8 hours. Yes.
Well, and another thing, being with sports and stuff at a school, I know up in Oscoda County, they have after school is the state police are there. And it's not the county monies, it's the state troopers that are there watching the games. Do they do that here or no, or what?
Both schools' signatures are on the contracts. They agreed to the flex time. They understand what flex time meant. Mr. Pereira was here from Whittemore Prescott. He understood exactly what flex time meant. He knew that there would be a few hours on a Friday morning that an officer may not be there. Or in the afternoon or something like that.
So,
I mean, it was,
Commissioner Scott Simon.
I'm sorry.
it was, I mean, he understood it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
I guess my thoughts on that are, if you have a resource officer at the school, and that resource officer is not there because he's gonna watch a game that night, and something happens at school, how are you gonna justify that?
You can't be there. You can't be everywhere all the time.
And I understand that.
You know, I mean,
Well, what?
say a guy wants to go to lunch and he runs to town to get something to eat and something happens. How do you justify that? Well,
I would
same
say he
thing.
probably eats his lunch there.
Well,
It's all part of the school provides this contract. So the school comes to us with this. So it's not really, I mean, Am I wrong there? They come to us with hours, with contract, with the financial pay. I mean, so this is on
There should
them.
not be 1 ounce of overtime there. Not one.
Well, that's the excerpt that he just gave you. That's what that's stating.
It's saying there, oh, you're saying it's flex time and there's no overtime,
Correct.
but there is overtime because they get 1.5 days off. So it may not be paid out in money, but it's been given in time off. To me, that's overtime. Overtime's overtime.
I don't disagree with you, but is that coming, that's not coming out of, how do we know where that flex time is coming from? Or comp pay? Is it from their hours at the school? Are they doing road work? I mean, we don't know where these hours are coming from. We have no idea. We need better information as far as where they're putting their time.
Sounds like
Please.
poor administration to me.
So, Commissioner Simmons, I think what we're getting at is this is what Tim has for us here is a very good start to find out the answer
Correct.
you're asking. And what you're asking is extremely important. If we're gonna do a service for the schools, we need to make sure that our contract covers our costs.
Yep.
If the schools, wants to make sure, flex situation, if they want to make sure if certain times there is a possible gap in coverage, but then they're gonna know what that is, and then they would have to pay for that additional if it's something that we could offer. So Tim's gonna work on to get us more information to try to get this pinpointed closer.
Right, where they're spending their time, their hours.
That very bottom, those bottom 2 bar graphs, the blue line in there, we needed to divide one that says school resource, the other that says road patrol, wherever else
Yes.
it's coming from. That's where our answer is gonna be, and that's where we can focus on the arithmetic to find out whether or not this is doing what we thought it would do from a financial perspective anyway.
Agreed. So can you put this on for the next committee, of the whole too, so we, and I didn't have this information beforehand, so if we can have this
Right.
beforehand too,
Do my best.
thank you. Water softener, RV park. Commissioner Scott?
Yeah, at our Parks and Rec meeting, we looked at 3 different quotes from softener companies, and we have recommendations to the board. So we'd like to be able to put that on the agenda for next week, if we could. Is that a problem, Tim?
Just to lay this all out, is it a problem? No, of course, we can put that on there if the board wants to do that, but the proposals came in. And there are 3 quotes, but I believe the quotes you want, and 2 of them anyway, came in over 5,000. When they exceed 5,000, we typically put out an invitation to bid and go through the process like we did with the scanner. The board, however, can, if you're satisfied with the quotes, can waive that and just say, go with the quote that the Parks Committee has recommended. I think this is kind of an urgent thing, if I'm not.
Well, we're
mistaken.
in the middle of June.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of June, and of course, it would have been nice to have this in place before we open the park. But we're in the middle of June now, and we're gonna wait another week. We're gonna be at the end of June. We only got July, August, and September left.
So you don't have
October,
you don't have a water softener right now that, or you have non-functioning or what, I
We
guess,
do not have a water softener.
at all?
We have high iron content.
Okay, I didn't know that. So you want to purchase one to,
Yes,
you guys have showers,
yes.
shower facility out there?
Yes, shower house, yes.
Okay,
There's a shower house there and with bathrooms and all that stuff, yeah. And newly renovated too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Right now,
how's the rentals out there this summer? Is it
But we're
both?
booked. We're booked
Are-
solid.
Really?
Well, this, we got Little League tournaments every weekend.
Mhm.
I gotta tell you, everybody in town's booked. I mean, all the hotels are booked every weekend. I mean, yeah, the RV park is, we have only 10 seasonals that we offer.
Mhm.
They're paid up in September of last year. We fill them right up. We got a waiting list for seasonals. But yeah, have no problem getting campers.
Commissioner Wilson?
Just to go along with what you're saying, I mean, even I saw last weekend with the flex of the baseball, the 12U guys in the
Midnight
town, I mean,
tournament, yeah.
their hotels are full. Businesses were jamming, and I mean, that's great, that's what we need. We got a service there that we're putting on, and we're charging people, You know, so I feel this is something that we need to move on ASAP, as long as we feel confident with the price. Yeah, that these people are paying again for, and we don't have a working water softener. So I think we need to really move forward this quick.
Were these local bids?
Yeah.
I didn't see them on our iPads. Are they there?
No, they're not there. And we just had the meeting Tuesday. So no, they're not on the iPad. They can be for next Thursday.
Okay, what's the cost?
With our recommendation, I think it's around $6,400 or something. You
The
remember?
high bid was 8,000.
Eight,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And you guys have the funding. It's coming from your own. You just need our approval. Do you guys have a problem with just going forward with this?
I can't say,
Why?
She had to abstain from the vote.
because of conflict,
Just
had a conflict of
just
interest.
because of the contractors.
I could not vote.
Do you have an issue, Commissioner
No,
Watson?
you heard my statement. I want to see this move forward as fast as we can.
Commissioner Scott?
That's.
So you'll make
that's
your
the only reason I'm
recommendation?
bringing it up.
So what recommendations, I guess, what resolution so can we put on there to spend up to?
Yeah,
top bid and they make the
absolutely.
decision of what they do?
yeah, not to exceed number we'll put in
Okay.
there.
I think we must move forward. Commissioner Mayhew?
Thumbs up.
Anything else? Any public comment? Oh my gosh, come on up. I want to hear your voice, sir.
Yeah, but
I do.
I hear it all the time.
I know.
What's your name?
Dan Domzowski,
Where you from?
Foster Township.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay, I just kind of want to go over this administrator controller situation. I pretty much attend all you guys' meetings. I've been through the beginning to the end, and unless I missed something through your closed door meetings, whatever, it was never really talked about eliminating any people from the staff. My comment is to you board members, I challenge you to look up what a controller does and what they, what their duties are. Because I've had them in my previous work in aerospace, and that's an important function.
Mhm.
But people report up to that person. They don't eliminate people.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
so that's all I want to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for attending our meetings.
Yeah, thank you.
Love
It
it.
is appreciated.
Love it.
Appreciate
Any
it.
other public comment? Any public comment on the phone? A motion to adjourn?
Motion,
Support? Motion adjourned at 7:06.
the end. Greg, it's the end.
Huh?
It's all, really cool about it.
Yeah.